Welcome to this special mini-series from the Property Podcast. We've been presenting the Property Podcast every single week for pretty much 10 years. And over that 10 years, we've built property businesses. We've built up our own property portfolios. We've published best-selling books, and we even write a weekly column in the Sunday Times. And in this series, our aim is to spare you from going back over the last decade by giving you an entry point. Whether you're new to property or experienced, there's going to be something for you. And in this first part, we're talking about how to get started in property in 2023.
So let's get you going. Let's kick off the year in style and let's get you focused, because that is the most important thing when you go on your property investment journey. And the first thing you ultimately need to do when you go on any journey is decide what your destination is. What do you want from property? It sounds so easy, right? But so few people can answer this or answer it well. Understand what you want, because you're going to do a lot of work when it comes to investing in property. There's going to be ups, but there are going to be lots of downs as well. And you need a meaningful reason to do this. So just saying you want to build a property portfolio isn't enough. What will that give you? How will it change your life and the lives of other people around you? That's an exciting thing. That's brilliant that you can go on that journey, but get very, very clear, because it will motivate you when things do get tough and help you make better decisions along the way.
Yeah, and it is going to get hard at places. It's only fair to tell you that now. So you do need that motivation and that clarity of purpose. So you need to know where you're going, but you also need to know where you're starting from. And by that, I mean three different things. There are three main things that you're going to have potentially working in your favour, or where potentially you're a little bit weaker, so you need to compensate for them. And those three things are money, time, and skills. So if you imagine you've got loads of all of them, you've got tons of money, you've got nothing else to do, and you're brilliant at every aspect of property refurbishment and financing and everything, well, then you'd have no problem. You wouldn't even need to try that hard because you've got so many advantages in your favour. But most people are strong on one, maybe two of these, and need to compensate for the others. So for example, if you've got property skills, but not a lot of money, then that's okay, because you'd be able to use your skills to make money from properties in a way that other people without those skills wouldn't be able to do. Another very common situation is to have a decent amount of money, but very little time. So the reason you've got money is because you are working in a busy job. Maybe you've got a young family as well. So if that's the case, again, that can work out because you can use the money to compensate for a lack of time and a lack of time to apply your skills. So being able to assess where you're honestly at in terms of those three is super important, because that will determine the strategy that you should decide on. And going into property with a game plan, with a strategy, is super important.
The strategy is super important, because once you have a destination, a goal, and you've assessed where you're starting from, you need that strategy to get you from A to B. And the great thing about property is there is loads of different ways you can approach it. The terrible thing about property is there's loads of different ways you can approach it. So many people stutter at this point because they get overwhelmed with the decision of how to move forward. And they will hear different things and different experiences from different investors. And most experienced investors will tell new investors that their way is the best way. Be very careful, because they may have a different destination to you and a different starting point. So what works for them may not work for you. Now, if you want help on getting to a strategy that is right for you, then you can take our quiz. It's absolutely free, and it will help you understand what type of investor you are and what strategies best suit you. Go to propertyhub.net/strategy-quiz. That's propertyhub.net/strategy-quiz. And within minutes of taking that quiz, you'll be further ahead.
Okay, so now you should know where you're starting from, where you're going, and to some degree, how you're going to get there. You should at least be able to use our quiz to rule different approaches in and out. And after answering that quiz, you'll be directed towards resources that will help you dive deeper into each different approach. The next step after that is to build up your knowledge. Property is not something you can just dabble in and mess around with and hope it works out for the best. A couple of decades ago, you could actually do that, but now it really doesn't work. Property is super rewarding, but it isn't easy. And even if you're going to be working with other experts for large parts of the process, you still really need to know your stuff. The good news is that there are many, many cheap or free ways of building that knowledge. So depending on how you like to learn, there are books, there are podcasts, there are YouTube channels. We've got all of these. There are others out there as well, all of which will deliver you an incredible amount of knowledge. while requiring you to lay out the absolute bare minimum of cash. There can actually be a danger to having too much knowledge and not enough action, but we'll come to that later. For now, though, don't skip that step of building your knowledge. This step in reality never ends. You've always got more to learn, but this is the time to start it.
But the fact you're here is encouraging, which shows you're the type of person who does like to learn and better themselves and improve. So just keep doing it. Don't give up. Another thing you should be doing at any stage of your property investment journey is building on your network. Your network will really help you when you go on this journey. Going alone will be tough, and there are different ways you can build this network. So it could be for accountability reasons or mentoring reasons or just having somebody to share your experience with. That is really valuable. Property investment can be really lonely. Most people won't understand what you're doing if they have no experience with property investment. They maybe question what you do, not through malice or to trip you up, but just because it scares them and it's something they couldn't do themselves. And that's okay, but you must be aware of that. So by having a great network around you, it will help you on those tougher days or weeks or months. Now, there are lots of ways you can build your network. You can do it online. You can use the Property Hub forum, which again is completely free, or you can go to networking events. Some cost a small amount to go and others, again, are for free. Just be very careful when you go to those events. There are lots of people there, some with best intentions at heart and others are there just to sell you stuff. That's okay, but just be aware of it. One of the first people you need to get in your network, though, is a really good mortgage broker. Mortgage brokers are not created equal, especially when it comes to property investment. Most mortgage brokers are not expert when it comes to buy-to-let mortgages. If you ask any broker can they do it, they will probably answer yes. But what you want to understand is what proportion of their business is buy-to-let. You want to work with a mortgage broker where the majority of their business is buy-to-let, because that means they have exposure to the market over and over again. Somebody who does the odd one or two every now and again won't be able to give you best advice. Doesn't mean they're a bad broker, it's just that they don't have the experience that you will need, especially if you're inexperienced, to move forward on your property investment journey.
Yeah, absolutely. There are other people you'll want on your team, including solicitors, letting agents, people like that. But what you need at the start is the mortgage broker, because finance is such an important part of property, unless you are starting with absolutely vast amounts of cash. Therefore, you need to get their opinion early in the process so you know for sure what you're looking at, because everyone's situation is different. The final step when it comes to getting started in property in 2023 is to actually get started. And there are two ways that people get this wrong. One is to rush straight in, go on Rightmove, start viewing properties, start putting offers in without giving it enough thought and without going through some of the steps that we've talked about in this episode. The other mistake is to get too caught up in debating different strategies, talking to people, building knowledge, and believe that they can't get started until they know absolutely everything. Well, I'm sorry, I've got to tell you, you're never going to know absolutely everything. We've been doing this for over 10 years and we still don't know everything. The solution is to set an action date today. Give yourself a deadline by which time you'll say, okay, I've got comfortable now, I know what I need to know, and I'm ready to actually start taking action. That shouldn't be too soon, but it also shouldn't be too far away. Maybe a few months is right, but it's different for everyone. But you do need to set that date to commit to actually taking action and not get caught up in the knowledge stage, which some people do for years and years. But you must get past that because the real learning comes from doing. The theory is super valuable, but within a month of actually getting out there and doing it, you will have learned more than you could have done in 5 years of sitting there passively reading books or listening to podcasts. So it's not either or, and it can be really fun to learn, but it's a lot more fun to learn and set the foundations for a far wealthier future at the same time. That's what we're ultimately doing, and the only way to get there is to take action.
Finally, don't accept excuses. And I mean excuses from yourself. Your success this year is down to you. You can tell yourself a story at the end of the year or next year why it didn't happen, but that's all it is. It's a story. Something to make you feel better about your lack of action. If you push forward, then that's because of you. If you don't push forward, that's because of you. Now, you may think that's harsh, but it's the truth. And pushing forward comes in different ways. I don't mean you've built a multi-million-pound portfolio, but if you do, fantastic, well done to you. But just making progress and being further on by the end of the year than you are now is down to you. Life will give you lots of excuses. Life will get in the way and give you convenient reasons why you don't make progress this year. But if you stay motivated, keep that goal, that destination in mind at all times, and find the time to push yourself forward, to get closer to that destination, you will do well. accepting excuses for not pushing forward, well, you're doomed to fail. By keeping your end goal in mind when times get tough, when your motivation diminishes a bit, that's what will keep you on the path. Make sure you have that in front of you at all times. Get the accountability partners on side with you. Network with other investors. Listen to the podcast every week to keep that motivation up and keep pushing forward.
So that's how to get started in property in 2023. If you'd like to have some help in achieving your property goals this year, there are a couple of services we offer which may suit you. One of those is we help investors to build long-term buy-to-let portfolios at a discount with our business Property Hub Invest. You can find out more about that at propertyhub.net/invest. We also have an app called Portfolio, which allows you to access the potential benefits of property investment via an app with as little as £1,000. To find out more about that, go to portfolio.co.uk. But you don't have to do either of those things. In this series, it's our aim to tell you everything you need to know to do it all yourself if that's what you want to do. And when you're doing that, there are very common mistakes that you could end up making if you're not aware of them. So join us next time for part 2, where we're going to be sharing the big mistakes that we see investors make time and time again and helping you to avoid them.